there's some learning that takes place in a failure. But if you are automatically pushing someone into the panic zone every time you give them assignment because you're not willing to have conversations, or you see somebody struggling and you don't go in and say, hey, can I help you? I just feel like that says more about the person watching that struggle than the person in the struggle.
Welcome to the Made Leader Podcast, where exceptional leadership isn't about who you are, but who you choose to become. Join your host, Jen Arnold, for expert interviews, real-world stories, and practical advice that transforms managers into exceptional leaders. If you're a middle manager ready to unlock your potential, this is your podcast. Let's get started.
Hey there, and welcome to the Made Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Jen Arnold. I am thrilled to introduce you to today's guest, Crystal Morris-Harry. I met Crystal when I was speaking at a local conference, and I came early to listen to some of the speakers, and she was on a panel of learning and development professionals in the public sector. And she was one of those panelists that just stood out to me because she actually talked about something that didn't work. So she tried something, it didn't really work, and she was honest about it. So typically panels, you put on the bright and shiny facade. Well, she talked about the unspoken things that most people don't talk about. So I knew I had to have her on the podcast. Let me tell you a little bit more about her. Crystal Morris-Harry currently serves as the Organizational Development and Wellness Manager for the City of Las Vegas, overseeing performance management, employee development, and HR training initiatives. In recognition of her exemplary efforts to drive positive change, Crystal received the City of Las Vegas Employee of the Year Award in 2022. In her spare time, she is also the managing partner and co-founder of JBM Strategic Partners and brings more than 20 years of experience in human resources, specializing in talent management, training, and employee development. In today's conversation, we discuss how to use empathy effectively without avoiding the hard conversations. She offers practical strategies for encouraging growth in team members who say, I just want to do my job. Why the power of admitting mistakes as a leader creates psychological safety for your team. And she also talks about the difference between what successful leaders do differently than those who get stuck. And also she leaves us with some advice on how to advance your career if that is something you'd like to do. Now, real quick before we get started, if you are a leader in your first few years of management, I've got something special for you. I am running the Made Leader community. In this community, you'll have a 3-month experience where I will help you master the tricky transition from doing the work to leading the people. We'll talk about what truly builds high-performing teams. And then I'll also help you learn how to handle those uncomfortable situations with genuine confidence. We are going to kick off in June. It'll run June, July, and August. I'm looking for a small group of motivated leaders, hopefully just like you. So you can head to growsignals.co to grab your spot before they're gone. And of course, I'll link it up in the show notes as well. Now on to today's episode. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Crystal Morris-Harry. Thanks so much for listening. Crystal, welcome to the Made Leader Podcast. I'm so glad to have you on.
I'm excited to be here with you, Jen, so thank you so much.
Absolutely. We've been talking about it for a while, so I appreciate you fitting it into your schedule.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, I like to start with a question so the listeners can get to know you a little bit. And if the listeners really knew you, they would know that what?
If the listeners really knew me, they would know that I am passionate about people and leadership. I think leadership is the catalyst for really transformative growth when done properly. So I think that's what they would know about.
Asterisk, when done properly.
Yeah.
So given that, what does being a leader mean to you?
I think that being a leader, it's really an honor and a responsibility. I think oftentimes people think of leadership as, oh, I get to tell people what to do. And that's not what leadership is for me. Leadership for me is giving people the space necessary to be their best selves. And it's sometimes having the conversations and pulling things out that they didn't even know that was a skill set that they had, right? So helping people grow.
Is that kind of recognizing strengths? Is that using a coaching approach? Is that a little bit of both?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that, oftentimes we see other people see things in us that we don't necessarily see in ourselves. And so when I see that, I'm like, let's capitalize on that. And let's have a conversation about, how can we do more of that? Because that is something special that we should really amplify
and this
on your career path. Yeah.
Yeah. And those strengths come so naturally that you often don't notice it. It's just something you're doing. So to have a leader or a mentor call that out.
Yep.
Now, I always like to think about, like, as a leader, especially, there's early days where you're trying to figure everything out. And I think there are sometimes you have to learn your non-negotiables. You can call them core values. But what are things as a leader you're like, this is me, this is Crystal, I am not going to negotiate on these values?
I would say my top core values would be integrity, empathy, growth, and authenticity. I think for integrity, if you don't have trust, you've got nothing, right? I believe in keeping my word and being super transparent with those that I have the privilege of leading. When we're talking about successes or setbacks, I think it's important that I'm truthful in what we're dealing with. Empathy is huge. I think from a leadership perspective, when you are people focused, it's important that you can foster a culture of respect and also be empathetic. And I've been blessed in my career to have some really great leaders who I was able to model myself after, and then having mentors as well. That's super important. And I think growth. I just refuse to remain stagnant. This year I took 4 certifications.
Well, I've been seeing them on LinkedIn, Crystal. I was like, you're getting busy.
Last year. Oh, yeah. I want to be a lifelong learner, and I encourage my staff to do that. So when we sat down and did goals, I told everybody, I want to see something with continuous education. What are we going to do? What's that next best thing that we should be doing, that you should be thinking about? And each and every one of them came up with something really great. And it's something that's tools for your toolbox, right? You got to just keep putting things in there. And so I love that. And then authentic. It's important that I show up to work in an environment where I could just be myself. For my coworkers, that could be, hey, you look like you're sad today. Let me just make up a song on the spot and we'll do a little dance, right? Whatever that is, I want to come to work and have an impact and have fun while doing it and just being authentically me.
I love it. I've got a few follow-up questions. Let's talk about growth first.
Yeah.
Right. So I was talking to a leader earlier today, and we were talking about growth. Like, some people want to grow and develop and learn and cross-train, and some people are a little bit more hesitant. So how do you approach that with people who are, I'm good where I am. I'm not really, they're not really ready to be pushed. What do you do with that?
So I have an employee who was like, I just want to come in here. I want to do my job, and I just want to do my job. And I said, I think that's amazing, but I'm also going to push you a little bit. Because I want you to continue to grow, regardless of if you feel like you want to go into a leadership level or not. These are skill sets that'll help you in your current role. Think about things in a different way as you're interacting with our employees, right? And so, and she was all in. It took a little bit, and then she was saying, I feel like I have imposter syndrome. And I said, I don't think it's imposter syndrome. I think you're just going into territory that you're not familiar with. But the great thing about it is you get to write your own story. And so I'm constantly going to challenge someone who's like, I'm just good right here where I am. I know you are. But let's just see if we look just a little bit over that hill. What will it look like for you? So I create an atmosphere where we can have real dialogue about what that next step looks like. And then what I'm seeing as a leader, what I'm seeing in you, that you may not even be seeing in yourself. So I have 2 different sets of folks on the team. I have those who want to be lifelong learners as well, and those who I'm challenging to do more.
Yeah, because it always sounds like you're making it less about stepping up or going, kind of going to the next thing. You're going, hey, how can you do your own job better? It's fine to come do it and do it well, but you could learn and grow within your role.
Exactly.
Did I get that right?
That's really what it is. That's all it is. And at the same time, when I'm encouraging that, then there's a different kind of mindset that starts to happen organically. Like, you know what? I think I might be able to do this, whatever this next thing is. She may never be ready to take on a leadership role. That's maybe not her thing, right? But can you become a subject matter expert where you are and be that person? You absolutely can. So that's what I want them all to do. I want them all to always have something that they're learning that's new.
Love it. Yeah, I'm a big growth and development person. So you're in the role you're in, you kind of, I guess, should be anyway. So let me tap into the word empathetic. I know what it means, but I think it gets misconstrued by other leaders that if they're going to be empathetic, then they're going to be soft. So explain to me how you approach empathetic leadership.
And I guess when I hear that, because I've heard that as well, what's wrong with being soft? You don't have to be this overbearing person when you're dealing with people. One of the things I know my team hears me say often is life is lifing. And when life is lifing, like it did for me today, I have to be able to be empathetic and understand that everybody doesn't have the same exact dynamic. And I'm going to give you the tools necessary so you can come to me. You don't even have to make up something. I've had employees come in and say, hey, today I'm just not feeling well. And I'm like, we'll go home and let's try it again tomorrow. Because if I give you the ability to say, I don't feel well and I don't know what it is, I just want to make sure as a person you're okay before we start to talk about the business of the job. I think we've all seen all too often that, things happen with our employees. They leave. Some of them may pass on the job. What happens? And the work continues to go on. I have to be willing to take care of my people at a personal level and then show that I'm human too. There's days when I come in here and I look like, oh, no, that's not right. And they'll say, are you all right? And I'm like, I'm okay. Let me just get some eyebrows on and I'll be fine. Just give me a moment, right? But I just need space to do that. And I'm not, I think we say empathy and sympathy as if they're interchangeable. Those are two very different things. I just want my employees and the people that I have the privilege to work with to know that I get it. What can I do to help?
So, yes. And then what happens when you're addressing performance that is slipping, right? So there's the empathy. I think what people misconstrue about soft is like you're not handling any feedback. You're just letting people get away with anything. But we know that's not true. So how do you balance the two?
That's definitely not true. And when I have to discuss a performance issue, I bring them in and we have the conversation. And I start with, how do you feel like you're performing? And then let me tell you what I'm seeing. And then let me tell you where I need you to get to. And then I'm going to ask you if there's some tools that you need me to provide for you. And then let's come up with a plan. And then we meet every week. And every week I'm giving you honest feedback. I feel like the worst thing we can do as leaders is sugarcoat, right? I'm not going to tell you that you're doing a phenomenal job when you're not getting it. You're giving me incorrect data. You're missing deadlines. Let's talk about what's going on with you and figure out how we can get you to where I need you to be. I don't shy away from the tough conversations, but there's a human component to that. Because I don't know who's dealing with what on the outside. We talk about external noise all the time. I don't know what's going on in the home. I don't know any of that stuff. And we like to think that when you come to work, you leave home. You come to work and you leave home at home. That's not realistic. You're bringing it with you.
Mm-hmm. Unless we're robots.
Exactly. So, for me, I'm like, what can I do to make certain that you understand what my expectations are? And then I'm going to hold you accountable. But I'm also going to tell you at that same time, I believe you can do this. But if you don't believe you can do it, you have to self-select and say, I can't do this anymore. What are my options, right? But from my lens, I think you can do it. Just got to buckle down. You got to get back on the right track. I'm giving you the space to do what you need to do. Let's get there.
Yeah, I think that's vital. What you just said is expectations.
Yeah.
That if it's in your head and you expect something of people, but you never told them, how are they supposed to get there? So the expectations and then keeping them accountable to it. So I like the way you frame it. It's still about the people.
It is. It is. I'm like, you got to have the people in order to get the work done. And
That's right.
Thinking that, like you said, like we're robots. That's not life. That is not the reality that I operate in at all.
No, not at all. Well, it's obviously some of the things that light you up that I am perceiving, at least, like growing your team, seeing their potential. But what else do you just really enjoy about leadership?
I think what I really enjoy about leadership is the ability to make an impact across the organization. In my role as an OD and wellness manager, I have the ability to impact not just my team, but the other employees in the organization as well. And so I enjoy just having that positive impact. It's a choice, right? I can choose to come in here and talk about everything that's going wrong. It's very easy to identify what's going wrong. It takes a little bit more energy, a little more courage, a little more effort to talk about the things that we're doing right and celebrate those victories and those wins. And so I want to have a big impact in a positive way. I shouldn't just say not just a big impact because it could be a negative. I want to have a positive impact on the employees that I encounter.
Yeah, an impact. I'm glad you said positive impacts. We're all making impacts.
Yeah.
Well, Krista, what is still a challenge for you as a leader? Because as you said, we're not robots, we're humans, and it's a challenging role. So where do you find that you're still like, maybe not my favorite part, or that still challenges you?
I'm going to say as much as as much as I try to infuse empathy into what I do, I think that balancing empathy in the necessary tough conversations can be a little bit of a challenge for me. I'm just a natural person who is encouraging and giving constant feedback. And so when we're having those difficult discussions, that are often, they can be uncomfortable. It's really, I'm an empath, right? And so when I see someone crying because I'm having that tough conversation, I automatically, my automatic go-to would be to stop the conversation, but that's not leadership, right? So I got to push through this uncomfortable space so we can get to that real growth for that employee. So I would say that's one of the things that still challenges me. I don't shy away from it. It's just the nature of who I am. I just know that, I empathize with this person getting this news. That would be my challenge.
I like that you said that because I think people do shy away from conversations because they're going to cry. Yeah. They're going to have an emotional reaction, and they will, and let them, right? But you know that about yourself. You're going to want to comfort, you want to maybe soften, but knowing that you just have to be there and just let it happen.
I literally, when I'm going into those types of conversations, I have almost a script, right? Because I just want to make certain that I don't lose sight because I have a person who's crying and I'm empathetic, and I do not want to cause anybody pain like that. But I also have a duty to the organization and my division and the rest of the team to say, hey, here's where we're struggling and I need you to get here. But I just got to push through. I got a script. Mm-hmm. I'm checking up the boxes in my head, like just to make certain that I'm doing this the right way. Yeah.
Yeah. So is there anything, like, how has your leadership approach changed over the years? Like, have you had an experience in your past, or has it just been trial and error that has really made you into the leader that you are today?
I think it's seeing leadership at its best that's helped me become the leader that I am. I've had some great mentors. My sister is one of my mentors. She is a phenomenal leader. And so being able to have the conversations and being able to watch, I always like to say, I never met a person that I couldn't learn from. Either I learned, I don't want to do that ever, 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 or I want to be that, right? And so I think it's just been watching and observing and then making it mine so that I show up as who I am as opposed to carbon copying what another leader did. Even though it was good, I still have to be able to make it mine so that it sounds authentic when I'm doing it and sounds and looks and feels authentic when I'm engaging with people.
Yeah, I think it takes a while to get to that stage. But yeah, watching the good leaders and going, oh, what can I take from that? But also the ones that you're like, oh, God, do not want to take that in, right?
No, who invited you to the leadership party? But you got it. You don't have it.
Well, since you've mentioned mentors a couple times,
yes.
How have you gotten mentors? Has it been formal mentorship, informal mentorship?
I've had a combination. I've had formal mentors and I've had informal. And I'm not a shy person. So I'll just go and ask like, hey, will you mentor me? And then they're like, yes, I will. And I've had someone say, no, I won't. And then after I watched, I was like, oh, that wasn't going to work anyway. We're very different. But I have, and they're in all different sectors. So one is a fractional chief human resources officer. I've known him for now almost 20 years. Another one has a military background. I have another mentor who has an higher education background. And then I have my sister who also had government, right? And so I just, I spread it around basically
Right.
what I need, but I
Yeah.
need to be able to I think mentorship is really important. I think when you get to a certain level in your career, you should also be mentoring people. So right now I have, 3 individuals that I'm currently mentoring, but it's what I should do, right? It's, it's creating an atmosphere so that the next generation of leaders coming up doesn't have to have the same stumbles that I had, or can talk about it and talk through it. I just think mentorship is something that we don't do enough of when we get to a certain
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Crystal, because, there's certain, I can't say it's generations, but there's people who say, well, I had to stumble and I had to figure it out. So I'm just going to let you figure it out on your own like I did. And I'm glad you're not of that mind. You're like, why?
level.
Why not give them a few cheat codes along the way?
Sure. It just makes the most sense. I think gone are the days, or at least I hope gone are the days where people are allowing people to fail. There's some learning that takes place in a failure. But if you are automatically pushing someone into the panic zone every time you give them assignment because you're not willing to have conversations, or you see somebody struggling and you don't go in and say, hey, can I help you? I just feel like that says more about the person watching that struggle than the person in the struggle. We shouldn't do that. That's not leadership, right?
Right. Why not help so these people do not have to make the same mistakes? Because we've all made them, right? So, hey,
Yeah.
let me help you out.
Yeah.
Well, Krista, one of the reasons I wanted to interview is I first saw you on a panel. So we were at a conference and you were on a panel, and I was so drawn to your openness. I mean, you said open, transparent, like that is one of your core values. But being on a panel, you said, hey, I didn't do this right. And you pretty much admitted a mistake you made when talking about your role. And that was endearing, because how many times you see a panel and it's bright and shiny and everything's good, but how have you gotten comfortable with just being, you can call it vulnerability, you can call it, transparency, authenticity, whatever buzzword you want to put out there, but really owning up to mistakes or setbacks? Have you always been like that, or was that a learned skill?
If you ask my sisters, they'll tell you that I would always own up to what I've done incorrectly, and then I would let everybody know what they did wrong as well. So kind of a tattletale.
But you're telling yourself too.
Yeah, I told myself too. I'm in there as well. I just think it's important. I'm not perfect, and nor am I trying to be perfect, right? And I think that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to call out the mistakes you've made. I think it's important to show that we're even though I'm in a leadership role, I'm still a human. And it happened just as late as yesterday. I went into a meeting with my director and I was telling him something, and I could see his face turn. And I said, okay, well, when I was in my office, this is a brilliant idea. But based on your reaction, I can tell that not so much. Let me go back to the drawing board, right? But I think it's just being authentically who I am. I'm not going to be perfect. My only goal is to be better today than I was yesterday. Do I meet it every time? No. Am I striving for it? I am. That's just where it is.
Well, to be able to do that, I love it too, because that's, where people stand, and that they're not going to try to cover up mistakes.
Yeah.
They're going to just tell you, hey, this didn't work out well. Here's how I'm fixing it, right? So it's not like you're just sitting there going, hey, it didn't work out. You're trying to find a different path forward. You're learning from it.
That's exactly what it is. I think that, just again, you learn from your mistakes, right? If you think back to anything that you've done in life, when you have it solidified and you know exactly how to do it, eyes closed, I can do this in my sleep. You haven't learned anything. You've learned, you've mastered it. Now someone comes in and they throw you a little different project, and you've never done that before, but you got to figure it out. And you're going to make mistakes along the way, but you're learning along the way as well. So I think it's just important to create that atmosphere. Mm-hmm. If I can come up and say, hey, I messed this up, that gives my team the ability to say the same thing, right? They're like, well, I know if I go to Crystal and I tell her that, hey, I thought this was going to be great and it wasn't, she's not going to take my head off. She's going to say, okay, well, what did you learn and how can we do better?
Yeah. Has it ever backfired on you from more of a managing up lens? Has anyone ever held it against you? Because that is a common fear, right? You're going to say, oh, I messed up. And someone's going to be, put you
Yeah.
in a box to say they screwed up.
Yeah. And it has not. Again, I've been really lucky with the leaders that I've had, that they've given me the space just to be authentically who I am. And I go in with my new leaders and I say, hey, here's who I am. I'm going to tell you when I mess up something. I'm going to also come with solutions. If you say something and it doesn't sound right to me, I'm going to tell you that in a respectful way. And I'm going to tell you from my lens what I think could be a barrier to whatever it is we're trying to do. But I go into with my new leaders with that conversation so they understand who I am as a leader, as their employee, and how I'm going to lead the rest of my team.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you find that you're being authentically who you are and people hold that against you, it's really unfortunate because it says more about that person than it does about you. At least you're being transparent and honest, right? I could have lied about it, which doesn't serve a purpose. Either way, it's going to cause some type of rift. Either I'm not being truthful, I'm being dishonest, or I'm being too honest. And you're going to hold that against me. Well, I'd rather be the too honest and you hold it against me.
Right. Because if you do cover it up, I mean, it definitely doesn't benefit the organization, but then kind of what culture you're in the organization, right?
Absolutely.
No one wants to know the mistakes, sweep it under the rug, and it's maybe not going to be in line with your core values, right?
Oh, you're right. It's that type of thing. I'm always big. One of the things that my dad would tell us as girls was never compromise your integrity.
Mm.
And so everything that I do, I always want to make certain that I'm making my family proud and I'm staying true to our family values. And that's one of them. So it's not worth it for me.
Yeah. Well, it comes across even not knowing you initially, right? It comes across. And I think that's strong leadership, right? People know what you stand for. I think that's important. Now, given your role overseeing organizational development, do you notice anything that successful leaders do differently? And whether it comes to growing their own leadership skills, when it comes to leading their teams, when it comes to political maneuvering, because I don't care what organization you work in, there's politics, right?
Yeah, there is.
So what do you see?
I see the most successful leaders are those who can empower the individuals who work for them. I think successful leaders often will ask for feedback from a proactive and a genuine place. I think that the most successful leaders always remain curious and they're always looking at the next best thing, the next step to do that. I think that's really what I've seen. And then also, it goes back along the lines of being a lifelong learner. I think there's a network of leaders that do it well and they network with other leaders who are doing it well. So creating that space to be able to have those conversations. I think the number one thing is to seek feedback from your employees and remember not to take it personal. You ask for the feedback so that you could be better, right? And so if you're giving your employees a space to be authentic, they're going to tell you exactly what you've done well. And they're going to tell you where they think you need to work on some things. And you have to be able to listen and put yourself in their shoes and say, maybe I did do that, right? Or I've never heard that before. Maybe you've not heard it before because you didn't ask, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's something that you can just be cognizant of as you're engaging with your team, that this is something that someone has said, right? Now I've heard it. Now I have a choice. I can either address it or I can say, no, that's not me. But then what does that do in that process of asking for feedback? If you ask for feedback and you're so taken back by it that you're like, no, I could never do that. So
don't ask if you don't want it.
That's my whole point. I tell people all the time, be careful what you ask. Because if you ask me, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm just going to tell you what I feel and what I've observed. And oh, by the way, I've taken notes, right?
Well, yes, if you are asking for feedback, you're not necessarily asking for everything you do well. Maybe if you phrase it that way, help me understand my strengths. I'm trying to uncover my strengths. But if you're just saying, hey, I'm open to both,
sure,
then don't expect them not to give you something that may be more constructive.
Sure. But you have to, that's the only way that we can continue this growth, right? Is by hearing some of the things that we need to do better. And then, like, if someone were to come up to me and say, hey, you gave me some data and it was probably incorrect, I'd be like, you're absolutely right. I don't do data. I have someone on the team who does data because it's not my thing. I don't enjoy math. I know it's a weak point for me as a leader. And I've been open with the team. Hey, I'm just going to tell you, I need your help in getting this, and then explain it to me so that I can then go and explain it as well. Right. I have to make a conscious effort to be good at the data. But if I know that about myself, when someone says it, I'm like, okay, you're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah, I don't do that well.
Right. And that's where you can leverage the people on your team that do it really well.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly.
You actually can't be good at everything. I mean, it's not possible. None of us.
It's not. Yeah, it's not.
Well, I want to go back to a word you said because I want to define it, because I think when we say one of the first words you said is empower, leaders who empower their teams. What does that look like? Because we could interpret it a whole bunch of different ways.
For me, I want to, when I'm assigning projects to the team, I want to be able to say, for instance, we just started a wellness initiative. And I said, I want our employees to be able to take part in this wellness initiative. I want to be able to tell them what their insurance benefits are and how we can marry those two. That was all I gave. How you get there is through empowerment. I'm telling you, I have enough trust in you. You heard the messaging and what I would like to do. You're going to get me there. And my team took off. I mean, they've done some amazing things. I'm just really, really proud of the work that they've done, but they had to feel empowered. And even when they come back and they say they hit a roadblock, and I'll say, okay, go with it. Well, they say we can't do it anyway. I'll take the heat. I want you to do what you feel is the best for our overall organization, which a lot of people wouldn't say that, but I'm like, do it and I'll take the heat for it. Right. Mm-hmm. But I'm giving them that space in order to do what they would do. I think the worst thing I can do is tell them in a very prescribed way how to get there. It may not be the best way. I'm just looking at it from my lens, but I know that the team is very talented, very think outside of the box type of people. And so I want to see what they come up with.
Right. Yeah. Because if you prescribe it, you get what you could have done anyway. So no new ideas.
No new
painting the picture for them and letting them go. I think that's, Thank you for that clarification.
Absolutely.
We talked about what distinguishes the successful leaders apart and kind of sets them apart. What about the people who get stuck, that kind of not really they're not as likely to get promoted, that kind of like middle of the road, kind of, they're stuck. I'll just leave it there. Yeah. Any characteristics or any qualities or anything that you've noticed about the kind of stuck leader?
I think the people who get stuck, I think they oftentimes avoid tough conversations. I think that they believe in the hierarchy of leadership, which doesn't really, yes, there's a hierarchy to it, but you can also zigzag, right? And so creating a space where our employees feel comfortable with the zigzag, avoiding accountability, or I've seen even worse, taking credit for your employees' work, which I'll be the first person to always say, I didn't do it by myself. I have an amazing team who's here and I appreciate everything they do. So I think it's just not being vulnerable, in an authentic way that will allow your team to really flourish. You'll get stuck.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good.
Yeah.
It's a good point, because how many times do you when you become a leader, the spotlight goes to your team, not to you. And that's hard for some leaders, right? So they take the credit and really it's all about doing the work through your team, lifting them up. But if you're taking credit, that's not happening.
It's definitely not. And I've watched that happen and I'm like, just give it to the team. Like, I don't come up with all the brilliant ideas. I just happen to be the person who's reporting it out. But I'm always going to say, so-and-so on my team did this. Mm-hmm. I want to make certain that they know that they're very much appreciated.
Yeah, nothing pisses anyone off. I mean, when your work is getting taken, but someone else gets the credit for it, that's going to piss some people off, and they're not going to want to work for you. You.
It's not good.
Oh, God. Well, let me ask you a little bit more of a tactical question. So, how do you keep in contact with your team? Team meetings, one-on-ones, team building, what does it look like for you to connect with your team?
So for me, I have, I think it's 4 of them now. I have 4 direct reports. I have one-on-ones with them every week. The 2 employees who don't report directly to me, I have monthly one-on-ones with them. but I try. So right now my team is in different locations. I've got some on the same floor as me, some downstairs, some across the street. I probably interact the least with those across the street. I'm trying to get better at it. But I go down and I say good morning every morning. How's everything going? How you feeling today? Just as a touch point, just to say, I'm here, you're here. Let's have a great day. But also in our one-on-one meetings, I'm not just talking about the work. I'm talking about what's going on in your life. My team is just phenomenal. And so we have a lot of that. One of our employees, his daughter is she's in performing arts school, and we just went the whole team on different days though. We went and supported her because it's important, right? It's just being able to relate with my team on a personal level. And they respond in kind. They know that I've got 3 kids, and now I have 2 grandsons who are adorable. I just want to, just share that portion of it. And that's how we stay connected. We also have group meetings as well. We'll go out to lunch often sometimes and walk or what have you, but we're always doing something as a team.
I love that. Yeah, it's that personal piece, getting to know everyone from a personal perspective and not just all business.
Yes. I can tell you something about each and every one of them.
That is important because, sometimes I'll ask leaders, like, let's think about your team. What do you know about them? I mean, they probably know something about the people that they bond with more than the others, right? Because that's just the more convenient thing. But knowing what motivates them, knowing anything about their personal life is super helpful to know and to have, to leverage.
Yep, it very much is.
Leverage in a positive way. I just realized when I said leverage, it seemed kind of nefarious.
Yeah, in a positive way. You're right. Yeah, that's what it is. Because again, it's the people that do the work. The work doesn't get done by itself.
Not at all. Well, Crystal, for middle managers listening, we're gonna say public sector. Let's just say public sector in particular, or you could say, no, I want to talk about all leaders. You do what you want. Who want to move up. It's important to them to make a good impression in their current leadership role, but maybe they're looking to move up. What's one thing that they should start doing tomorrow and one thing they should stop doing tomorrow?
Let's see. So I would say for anybody who's looking to move up, one of the things that I did was I looked at cross-departmental, building relationships with other people who are in the position that you'd like to be in. And it doesn't have to be in your own line of sight. So when I went through our leadership program, I purposely didn't ask for my director to be my mentor. I went across the aisle because I wanted to build some rapport with other people. So I went to the director of communications and was like, can you mentor me? And I got to learn a lot about the city from that perspective because I know what HR does. So I would say start to look at building your internal network, start volunteering with your organization. Just about every organization has something that they're doing out in the community. So get out there and get your name out there so people know who you are, both internally and externally. I would say what I would stop doing is don't be in a silo. Don't think you're on this island by yourself. Join professional networks, start professional organizations, I should say. Start networking, do presentations. I'm always looking for a way to tell the story of the things that we're working on. So get out there and toot your own horn. I would say the one thing to stop is just feeling like you're on this island by yourself.
And I think there's nothing better. I mean, it's where we met is that you were speaking at a conference, and I think those type things, like you're promoting yourself, but you're promoting your employer.
Yes.
And you're showcasing your work and like how good it is of a place to work. So I think it's great advice. Get out there.
Yeah, get out there. And I do. I'm out there. I'm doing a lot of stuff. I enjoy it. I think, the city of my organization is a phenomenal one. And I want people to know this is a great place to work. Right.
Get the word out from.
Yeah. I came in as what we call an hourly person. And here I am now as the manager of the organizational development and wellness division. I think it's great. You can go as far as you want to.
Absolutely. Crystal, where can people find out more about you or connect with you?
I would say LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn through my own page, and then also through I have a consulting business with my sister, and so we are out on that. It's JBM Strategic Partner. So either one of those, just LinkedIn is where I pretty much I'm active on there.
Well, I will link both of those up on the show notes. But Crystal, before we end, is there anything that you want to leave the listeners with? Maybe I didn't ask or we just didn't get to.
I would say when you are in your space and you're at work, show up as your best self every day. And sometimes when you're showing up as your best self, it's not that I'm saying give 100% every day you go in there. If you can only give 50%, give off 50 and then try again the next day. I think, how I said this in our conversation is I'm just trying to be better today than I was yesterday. And it's okay to fall short of that just as long as you have a goal in mind. And my shameless plug, make certain that you become a lifelong learner. Things happen and you may or may think how I landed here was I was out of my job was eliminated, but I was always a lifelong learner. So where some of my counterparts who lost their position may have been out of work for many months, I was out of work for about 30 days before I came and found this. So I would say just always that network helps. Get out there and meet people and do amazing things and always with a kind spirit.
All right, Crystal. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you sharing your leadership story and your time.
Thank you. This is great. I appreciate you.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.